Greetings all. Apologies for the difference in sound here, but I'm having to redo the intro for this one as it was intended to come out in the first week of October, but due to a chronic lack of editing time, we are now almost done with November. Now, as you can see here from these sexy looking orcs, I've been dabbling in the greenskins a bit, and as it was October when this one was supposed to come out, I decided to make myself something pretty much orky. Live intro over, normal transmissions can resume. I'm planning on making one of my favourite characters from Blizzard's MOBA Heroes of the Storm, Gazlowe. And most of this is going to be taken from this here mech gun kit, which I was initially drawn to by this little guy here. He will be the basis of the whole thing. So taking my little Grot here and building him up, he doesn't really need much done to him for a decent Gazlowe. However, I did use my cutters to take off the drill and rivet gun parts that were on the end of these handle things, as they will not be needed for what I am doing. I also did not use the masthead here, as I felt that the goggles looked way better, and all the heads are interchangeable in this kit. To use as a backpack to mount the mainstay of this Kitbash onto, I'm going to be using this detonator from the Reductor Saboteur kit. It looks a bit like some sort of power pack and has a little screen and stuff on one side, so it'll work nicely, I think. Taking my saw, I could chop off the tactical rock on the base of this, and with my knife I tightened up the cut bit a bit, just to make it seem as though it was meant to be like that. I also used my clippers here to take off the plunger and the gene stealer hand with it. With a couple of trims to the flatter side of the pack, and also to the Grot's back so they will sit flat together, these will be good to go. However, before I attach them, I would like to build the robot that is going on top of him first. For the body of said robot, I'm going to be using another part from the mech gun, the front end of the bubble chucker. With both halves glued together, I'm going to add some glue to the barrel end and stick this to the middle of my backpack, making sure to get the side with the bits poking out to the back, as this will be used as a mounting point later. To go onto that mounting point, I'm going to use this part here from the tractor cannon, as it looks a little bit like something an orc would shove on a robot. Maybe a field generator of some sort. First, taking my clippers, I could trim the tab off of it, and then I cut down the back of the robot body a little so that it would sit flat. And with that cut down, I can just add a little bit of plastic glue and attach this robot-y bit to the body. Again, from the tractor cannon, I have these little bits here. Gazlowe's robot has 4 exhausts poking out the top, but I am flush out of exhausts in my bits box, so I will substitute these. Maybe they conduct electricity from the bits on the back. Who knows? But they're going to either side of the back of this robot. The next part, once again from the tractor cannon, is the end of the barrel. I'm going to use this for some of the head of the robot, as the grill bit looks similar to the characters which I'm copying. To do this, I will need to cut this part up a bit, as it is quite thick. I'm going to be using my hobby saw for the bulk of the cutting, followed by a clean up with my knife so that it seats into the top hole of the robot body. As well as this, I'm going to snip off the ball on the top, as I need to make a little domed head for the robot. And to make this, I'm going to be using this here light fitting from the Kill Team Chownath terrain sprue, as it appeared to come with several of these light fittings and use none. With my knife, I'm going to carefully smooth out the domed light part as best as I can, remembering that this is an orc creation after all, so the odd scrape or dent is to be expected. With a nice rounded dome, I can once more employ the saw to take that off of the light-fitting body, and after tidying it with my knife, it can be glued in place on top of the robot's head. This doesn't look perfect at the moment and will need a trim down to be flush, but the glue will need some time to set, and I needed to do some adulting for a bit, so it was set aside for a little while. After it's had some time to set, I could come back to it with my knife and carefully scrape and trim the two parts together till they look like they were meant to be there. Before I move on to attaching the head, I'm going to use this 1mm plastic rod to make some eyes for the robot. Trimming tiny little bits of it with my knife, I could then dab some glue on the head and carefully press the tiny little circles onto it in an appropriate position. Eyes now on, this head can be glued onto the body. Setting that aside for a while and moving on to the arms, I'm going to use the back end stabilizing legs from the mech gun. But with the way the body is, I can't just glue them straight on, as they would sit at a funny angle and look a little bit weird. My solution to this is this plastic tube, similar to the plastic rod I was using. A couple of small pieces of this glued between the arm and the body will give it a bit of a better look. To this arm piece, I'm going to attach a chopper from the Nobz kit, trimmed away from the hand. But first, I had to take off some of the random pipes from my arm piece and attach an elbow joint of sorts to give it some bulk. For this elbow joint, I'm going to glue on the bottom of the lamp I used earlier for the robot head. Cleaned up a little, I have to trim down the flatter side of the two pokey out bits on the arm so that it had somewhere to sit nicely before gluing it in place. A bit more glue and the Nobz chopper can be added onto the elbow joint, making the first of the robot's arms ready to go onto the body. Though I did decide to add the little power pack / tank thing that was on the axe handle before I snipped it off from the orc hand. Before adding the arm to the body, I had one more small change to do, and that was to snip down the trim around the robot's middle where the arm would go so that it sat better against the body for gluing. For the robot's second arm, I followed the same process for the top of the arm as I did with the first. And for the lower end of this arm, I'm going to need a nice large shooter of some description. And this one here from the Boomdacker Snazwagon I think will work perfectly. But before I can attach it, I will need to remove the handle with my cutters, as it might look a little out of place. I also took off the little nub that attached it to the top of the Snazwagon. One final piece of preparation to the upper arm here would be to cut down the pipe on the end of it at a slight angle so it would sit flat on the side of the gun once the gun is attached. And once a fair amount of plastic glue had been added, the gun could be pushed into place onto the arm, the little tab coming out one side of the weapon, fitting quite nicely into the upper arm and looking vaguely like a join that is meant to be there, whilst the pipe on the side would help tie it in just that little bit more. And using yet more plastic glue, this arm can be added just like the first, giving the robot a decent amount of dakka. After this all has had some time to set, I wanted to add some more bulk to the thing, and what better than these shoulder pads from the Nobz kit, which could be added to the shoulder areas easily with just a little plastic glue. Just out of shot of camera, just to be real helpful there. And with those shoulder pads added, the robot is built, so it'll be time to add some plastic glue to the backpack and attach it to my little grot. I had thought a pin might be necessary here, but as it's a large, kind of flat plastic surface, the regular old plastic glue seems to have worked just fine. Once it was all together, there was one final change I wanted to do. That knob axe didn't seem quite large enough for my liking. So from the same Nobz kit, I have this buzzsaw arm that I was going to use for something else. Trimming it back a bit and removing the pipe, it will fit rather nicely on the top of the axe. And with a little more trimming on the axe itself, I could just glue it into place, making that chopper much more impressive looking. With the addition of a base large enough for his status as a Warboss and a fairly sizable tactical rock, my 40k rendition of Gazlowe is complete. I tried to stay true to his colour scheme from Heroes of the Storm, and I'm quite happy with the outcome. I cannot wait to have him at the head of my as yet unbuilt orc army. Perhaps an entire force of grots in the end. Who knows? And with that one, I hope you enjoyed this video, and would like to say a big thanks to all of my subscribers. As always, you are much appreciated. If you enjoyed the video and you would like to see more content like this, feel free to like and subscribe. Comments are also appreciated, even if I am a little bit slower responding to them nowadays. So stay safe and have a good one all.